Okay, so picking up where we left off with yesterday. Okay. So, what is something true about the food gathering for gastropods? They use a substance that's used both for movement or locomotion and food gathering. It's mucus. Now, why is that going to be an advantage for that of food gathering? It puts it into a what type of shape? Nice mucus ball, and then they can consume that. Now, what type of feeders are they? Are they suspension feeders? On the bottom, they depend on water currents. No, they're not suspension feeders. Okay? But yes, ciliary feeders, that's one. Do they eat dead materials or animals? Yes, so they're scavengers. Okay? Therefore making them carnivorous. And then also eat algae too, I believe. I must have missed it. Yes, it must be on this one here. Oh, yep, here we go. Okay. So again, as you had mentioned, ciliary feeders, that's true. Now, what is the function of this guy right here, kidney? Yeah, it's a filtering device. That's right. Okay. And then
Mr. McKinney, doesn't your kidney filter your blood? Okay.
It does. That's right. Yes.
Kidney stones, like what? Causes that.
Oh, it's different types of, you could say, salts or bile salts that build up. It could be inside of your gallbladder too, but just different types of components. They just start to get hard because of the phosphates, I believe, in them. And then they can just start to get bigger and bigger. And what might a treatment be rather than trying to pass it? That's very painful. Anyone who has ever had to pass a kidney stone, they would tell you that's extremely painful. So what might a doctor try to do to try to alleviate that pain rather than having to say you just need to pass that stone? What did you say? No, I think something a little, that might be a last resort. Okay, something that would, I don't know, sends out pulses of sound, if you want to call it that. And what that does, ultrasonic waves or sound impulses, will try to penetrate the inside of that kidney to break them stones up so they're smaller and smaller pieces so you can actually pass that. And now, pass that with no pain, possibly. But that's hard to say. Hopefully no one ever has to do something like that. Fortunately, I've never had to do that. Okay. Moving forward then. Okay? So if they depend on ciliary currents, water currents, just like peripherins means they're going to be what type of feeders then? What are sponges? Type of feeders. They are filter feeders. So are bivalves or clams. Yes, those are filter feeders as well. Okay, for instance, how can I explain this? The easiest way to explain this, I think, for instance, in football, if you pitch the ball backwards, what is that called? Do you know? If you say that again? It is a lateral. That's right. So what we mean, a lateral is something that is on the side. Okay? So if this is laterally compressed. We're talking about the clams don't stand up like this, okay? They're laterally compressed, which means they're on their side. And if you remember cutting them open, do you remember seeing a circle somewhere on the outside of the mantle? Okay? That is what's attaching to this, because what that does is that muscle holds that clam together as it's laterally compressed, sitting on its side. Okay? So, with this, again, the main idea is for that clam to be held shut, because starfish are probably the biggest predator of these animals other than humans. Okay? And with that, I think if you've gone to Boston for some reason, okay, it's a type of soup that you can order. Yeah. Clam chowder. I don't know. I think is there maybe red or white clam chowder? I don't know.
It's white.
It's only white?
I think so.
Okay. And yeah, you could tell me it was black and I would believe. I don't know.
No, it's like,
Okay.
my mom makes it, and it's always white. Or
Okay.
I see it, it's always white.
Do you get an opportunity to test that?
And I will never eat clams.
Oh,
I'll eat anything
you're
else.
pretty adamant about that.
Clams.
No clams.
Or squid, that's disgusting. I've tried that before.
Calamari?
That's not too bad. Well, it depends. Okay, that's the same thing, but like.
Okay, I was going to say, you want to be careful with that.
So like, if it like I see it and it's like the frozen ones or whatever they have, then I will eat it. But like if it's like I didn't know what it was, but it was fried and it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Just looks like curly fries.
Yeah, but it depends
But-
where you get it. Because out here it's disgusting. But out in California, it's not too bad.
No, probably because it's more fresh. Yeah, that would be my guess. Yep, I would venture to believe that's probably a little more accurate. Yep. Okay. So as we look at this, remember we said they are filter feeders. So you got that hinge ligament attaching to this, because that's what ligaments do. Okay. And how do we know that? Well, when you look at the human body, ligaments do that as well. It'll attach muscles, but in this case, it's not. How do I want to say that? Because they don't have ligaments and tendons like that of humans. We just refer to them as ligaments inside of these animals, because their movement is really not that complex. And just like any function of a shell, it's going to do that. It's going to provide protection. And that's one of the things you're going to see when we get to the dissection of the cephalopods or the squids. Yes, they have a shell, but you can't see it until you dissect it. So what would that mean if you can't see it until you dissect it?
It's inside them.
It's inside them. That's right. Okay. Up to 9 minutes so far. I don't think there's a whole. We got to get through the feeding yet. That's. I want to see where that's at. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We have like 3 or 4
Okay. So I was trying to count in my head. I think there's actually 5. I want to get through 2 more. All right. So with this, and this is something that you could see very evident when you're looking at the clams. The gills actually hang down on both sides. And when you pried the shell open, you could certainly see That's part of the mantle, and the mantle cavity is actually inside the shell then. But you wouldn't be able to see this, okay? Because those structures are actually cut off, that you won't see those types of siphons moving in and out of the animal. At least that's the way that I've always interpreted that. They're present, but the scientific supply company cuts those portions off. This here and that there. In current obviously means water coming in with food materials, and then we'll talk about that as far as their food gathering. It gets caught on the gills because they release mucus as well, just like gastropods do. And gastropods are who? Not clams. Gastropods are who? Not clams, because those are bivalves. No, those are cephalopods.
Slugs.
Yeah, and snails. Yeah, slugs and snails are gastropods. Yep. Then finally for today, this is where we'll wrap up, okay? And then we'll start with talking about feeding tomorrow. Okay, cilia, okay? Tiny hairs, that's what cilia is. Humans have it as well. You could say it's inside your nasal cavities, it's inside your trachea, because anytime any type of substance ends up in your trachea, it causes you to cough, okay? Because it creates a sweeping action. This does the same thing. As mucus is secreted from the mouth of these animals, okay, the cilia then will sweep it towards the mouth then. Okay?
Do you think that was on our clams the other day? Those little things, the little red like pond things.
Yes.
Oh, like thistles.
Yes.
That's what it was.
That could very well be what part of this is. Yes. And a lot of that might have been cut off. They just left some of that on there. Yep. Okay, so we will finish with the feeding of clams tomorrow, and then Thursday and Friday we'll talk about that of these cephalopods. Okay, I'll catch up to you next time.